Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Dan. This is Seahawks Forever. I am back after the first day of the 50th training camp for the Seattle Seahawks. Beautiful day out at the VMAC. Got to watch everything from up close on the field. I'll give you my overall impressions of what I saw today, as much as we can anyway. First day of training camp, of course. Not all full speed, not in pads, but still some interesting observations, I think, that we can take away from today's practice, as well as some news coming after practice from Mike Macdonald and some interesting reactions that he had to a couple of the questions that were asked as well. I'll give you my thoughts on the first day of Seahawks training camp coming up next on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Absolutely gorgeous day, as I said, out at the VMAC today. Couldn't ask for any better. It was about 78 degrees and a little bit of a breeze coming off of the water. It's funny. A lot of people were talking about how hot it's been out here and how warm it was today. A lot of bucket hats, a lot of straw hats, a lot of shorts. And for me, I showed up in jeans. Just trying to keep it as professional as possible, but also spent the last couple of months in West Virginia, where it can be 85 degrees and way more humid than anything we ever experience here in Seattle. Today was a walk in the park. It was absolutely lovely to be out there. Thanks for joining me. I am Dan. This is Seahawks Forever. We are live. Go ahead and get your comments and questions loaded up, and I will take as many of those as I can. Keep in mind, as I said at the top, early training camp, very similar to OTAs. No pads, no helmets, Guardian caps everywhere, shorts, no contact, a lot of rules and restrictions. We will not see pads until next week, probably midweek, and then we can see some hitting and some contact. And so on a day like this, I didn't spend a whole lot of time watching, for example, line play. Offensive line versus defensive line. There's only so much you can glean when there's no contact allowed. And during the running periods anyway, they were rarely going full speed. A lot of half speed, three-quarter speed stuff. Obviously very tough to tell. What you can see is just how guys are moving, how decisive certain players are, chemistry, efficiency. It was a sloppy day, guys. They had officials out there, and at one point there was probably about 7 flags in the span of 10 plays or so. It was and it was a lot of offsides, lining up offsides, motion, illegal formation, things like that. Just knocking the rust off, getting the kinks out. But there were some things that I thought, some players that stood out, and some things that I took away from practice today feeling good about. And then we'll get to some of Mike Macdonald's comments at the end and talk about how there may still, as much as we have liked this roster and talked about it pretty extensively over the last couple of months, still might be one need that feels a lot more glaring today than maybe it did just a day ago, where the Seahawks may need to be out looking for someone to add. Before we get started, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you would, please. Hit that like button for this video and the bell if you want to get notified anytime there is new content. I am a full-time independent content creator, so if you'd like to support the show in any other more tangible way, there are donation links down below. Also, check out the Substack. I'll be writing this week about my thoughts a little more in depth than we can get into here on video, and I'm going to keep that Substack free through at least the end of the month, and then I have vowed moving forward to only require the minimum donation allowed by Substack. Also on the Patreon, capping everything at $10. You'll get all the content that I do over there, except you will not have ads that YouTube's inserting. So you have that to look forward to, as well as some bonus content as we move forward farther into camp. Just an update, by the way. It was great to be credentialed by the organization, be out on the field. I have no idea what comes next. I I was led to believe that I would have be able to attend multiple, if not many, if not all of the training camp practices, but I do not yet have confirmation of whether credentials will be waiting for me tomorrow. So we're just going to go day to day until I get some more definitive answers and continue forward and try to produce as much good content for you and get as many observations as I can. All right, let's get into this. First things first, one thing that everyone wants to know, especially in a situation like the Seahawks are in, where literally the entire quarterback room is different than it was last year, is even in just shorts and no pads, no contact, we can see how sharp the quarterbacks look, right? And I mentioned this in the little blurb that I put up right after practice. I thought it was a good day for all three of them. The ball rarely hit the ground today. I think all three of them were accurate. All three of them were decisive. Here is one thing I did notice. And, I wasn't at OTAs or minicamp, but we heard, especially early in OTAs, we heard Sam Darnold was holding the ball. Would have taken some sacks at a couple of points. There were a couple of practices where he threw some interceptions, and that had some of you concerned. None of that today. I thought Sam looked... he was the best of the three quarterbacks, and that's saying something because I thought Drew Lock threw the ball well today, and so did Jalen Milroe. Last time I saw Jalen Milroe live, remember, was in Mobile the week of the Senior Bowl, and he was not good. That was not a good week for him. But we've seen him get better and better as he's gone through the process. I thought he had a solid combine session throwing the football, and then we heard the last 2 days of mandatory minicamp last month. Both Corbin Smith and Greg Bell said those 2 days of minicamp were the best they'd seen Jalen Milroe. If you had watched him today and you just didn't have any idea about what his background was, you wouldn't think that this is a guy that has struggled mightily with some intermediate throwing mechanics. I thought he looked much better, much more comfortable, and there were only 2 passes that I can recall top of my head or that are in my notes where a player had to slow down or maybe turn slightly. He was putting the ball right on guys. As much as he could anyway. Obviously, being third on the depth chart, he's not going to get as much run as Darnold and Locke. Just a couple of specifics that I wanted to highlight. Started 7-on-7 skeleton session. Darnold, second play of the session, I think. An absolutely perfect throw, as good as you can throw a football to JSN running down the left sideline on a go route. He was manned up with Josh Jobe, who was in good position, had tight coverage on him, but Darnold put it right on his outside shoulder, again, as well as you can throw a football. Even if Jobe had been able to make contact and be physical, I don't think he could have made a play on the ball. It was just a great example of JSN and his body control and his hand-eye coordination to make that catch, but Darnold really, really putting it in a perfect spot. Also, a 20-yard dig route to JSN again. It looks like that connection already heating up early in camp. Devin Witherspoon draped all over JSN. My first impression of that play was that if contact had been allowed, obviously Witherspoon would have been more aggressive going after the ball, trying to make a play on the ball. But I'm still not sure if he would have, because JSN did a really nice job of kind of shielding, using his body to get in between Spoon and the ball was just delivered so perfectly from Sam Darnold. I don't know that Spoon would have been able to do anything about that. And then maybe my favorite play of the day, and we weren't able to record during these team sessions, but it came right at me. I was standing right at the back right pylon during a red zone session, and Darnold just threw an absolutely perfect fade route to Cody White at the back pylon, who reached out, kind of reminiscent of JSN, the game winner against the Eagles 2 years ago from Drew Lock. Made the catch going to the ground. Officials right there, though, said he didn't get 2 feet in bounds. I didn't have the benefit of replay. Sure looked good to me, but the throw was, I'll say it again, was as good as you can actually throw a football. Just White just didn't quite get that second foot in bounds. Drew Lock, his nicest throw of the day, one of the best throws of the day, I think, that anyone had. A post route to Jake Bobo, about 20 yards. It was absolutely perfectly thrown. Really liked that. As I said, Milroe, generally accurate in his limited reps. But there were two plays that I want to point out. And no, I did not see, anything practiced today with Milroe taking, wildcat handoffs or coming out as a receiver. They're not going to show us any of that this early in camp. And even if they do, or when they do, we wouldn't be able to tell you about it. But there were two plays. One is, one of the things that some people wanted to knock him on coming out of Alabama is, didn't see a lot of full field reads. At Bama, can he process? Can he get off his first or second option? And there was one play in particular where he scanned. He originally looked like the play was designed to go left. It's not there. He ends up scanning, coming back all the way back over to the right side, hits Robbie Oots on a little curl route, perfectly thrown. Just thought it looked like a guy that was really comfortable with the offense and didn't like what he saw in his first option. Was able to go, to my eye, looked like Oots was the third option, if not the fourth. Thought that was really nice. And there was only one of these today, but there was another one where he drops back, and then he starts, actually it was a little designed rollout. We're going to see more of those in Clint Kubiak's offense this year. Saw a little bit of that today from all three of the quarterbacks, quite a bit of it from Sam Darnold. But on this particular one, Milroe rolling out to the right a little bit, didn't see anyone open right away, took off running. Obviously, again, no hitting, but it looked like the kind of play that just gave you kind of tip of the iceberg, where if they had been going full speed and had been able to hit, like could have turned into a pretty explosive play for Jalen Milroe. He just gets out so quickly and gets that edge. But I thought, just to wrap that up, a really comfortable day from Sam Darnold. Didn't even really come close to throwing an interception. And thought he looked like he had a good command of the offense. And in particular, what I like too, because keep in mind, we talked about this a little bit at OTAs. 7-on-7, 11-on-11. You have an offense that has undergone a tremendous amount of change this offseason, both in the coaching staff and wide receiver, tight end room. And so the defense is going to be ahead of the offense. 15 players back on defense that at least started a game last year. All 11 starters back on defense. They're going to be ahead of the offense. And, regarding what I'd said earlier about OTAs, where we had heard that Darnold, tended to hold on to the ball a little long at times, and it looked like there were some plays that would have perhaps been sacks. He was much, much quicker to get rid of the ball. I can think of only one or two plays where maybe if the bullets had been flying and it was live action, he was in jeopardy of being sacked. But even going up against one of the better secondaries in the league, potentially, I think we all feel good about the secondary. If he didn't see something he liked right away, it seemed like his internal clock was quicker. He was taking the check down, even in 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s, dumping it down to running backs or tight ends. So just something to tuck away, keep in mind as we move forward. We'll see how that goes once we get into more full speed stuff and obviously the contact. Not a lot to say about the defense today because, again, it is hard to really judge what they're doing. Other than a couple of observations, I did see Devin Witherspoon playing outside a lot, quite a bit. Might mean something, might mean nothing. Might just be first day of camp. That's what we wanted to play with today. Those are the combinations. Nobody asked Mike McDonald about it today, but after we get a couple days into camp, we'll see if we can get that in there. If I'm out there tomorrow, maybe I'll try to get that question in there if that's the intent. And he's probably not going to tell us, right? But it's worth asking the question anyway. Saw him outside quite a bit. With Reek on the other side, Emenwari playing in the box. Mostly didn't see any of Nick Emenwari playing deep. And then different combinations with Witherspoon sliding inside and Josh Jobe playing outside. So that was one observation. Another one is there were a couple of times where defensive linemen got past the initial effort from the offensive line, got into the backfield to where if we were playing full contact might have been able to make some pretty dynamic plays. Mike Morris got in the backfield a couple of times today. On one play, got back, caused Kenneth Walker to have to jump cut, kind of get out of his way and do what Walker does best and break it outside in what turned out to be an explosive play for Ken Walker, one of many. I'll touch on that in a minute. And then Derek Hall also got into the backfield a couple of times today. Really enjoyed seeing that. Now, back to Walker. This might be the first time in his career that he has been fully healthy, ready to go, day one of training camp, and it showed. I thought he was the best player on the field today, the most explosive player on the field. He was dynamic, had a couple of runs where it is just remarkable to see it live and up close how quick he is. And I saw decisiveness, a couple of inside runs as well. We all want to see him kind of take that next step in his development, be more decisive in this wide zone scheme, pick a lane, cut, and go, and then do what he does best when he gets to the second level, not dance around in the backfield as much, not reverse field as much. He didn't reverse field once today, although, again, it was a small sample size, a little bit of a shorter practice today. They wrapped up a little sooner than the media that usually covers the team was expecting. And then after practice, Mike Macdonald spoke to us and the media, and there were a couple things that stood out. We found out today that Jonathan Hankins has been placed on the NFI list. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Had to... Hold on one second. This is live. Sorry. Had to help someone in distress. Jonathan Hankins on the NFI wasn't out there today. McDonald said he's dealing with a little back issue, but they're not concerned about it being a long-term issue. They don't think he'll be out very long. He just didn't seem concerned at all. Said he's a 13-year vet. We're just taking our time with that, and we're going to slow play that. So we'll have to keep our eye on that, see when we can get Jonathan Hankins back. Shaq Griffin also was not participating in practice today. Turns out McDonald just said he came down with a little illness yesterday, wasn't feeling all that good today, so they held him back. We might see him back as early as tomorrow. And then also Riley Mills, we don't expect him back anytime too soon. He was out there doing just kind of some work on the sidelines, wearing a sleeve on his leg, coming back from that ACL injury he suffered in the college football playoff last year. He was just kind of doing some drills and some hand work and stuff with an assistant coach on the sideline. But Uchenna Nwosu, we didn't expect to see him practicing today. He was out there in uniform on the sideline, but not participating in any drills or anything. Coming off of, he had upper body injury last year and the knee injury after being cut block in preseason. And then it was revealed early in the offseason, shortly before the draft, that John Schneider said he had to have just a minor cleanup, but they didn't sound like they were too concerned about the knee from Nwosu. Not great news, not a great response today from Mike Macdonald when asked about Chenna. Said they're just going to have to wait and see, and they just don't know. Doesn't sound like they expect him back really anytime soon, which makes me wonder, right? The release of Noah Fant earlier this week clears about $8.6 million off the Seahawks salary cap, which was already in good shape. So now, according to Over the Cap, they have about $33 million available in cap space. Is there a need at edge rusher? I had maintained that the need there was possible, but not obvious, not pressing, as long as Nwosu can go. But that only gave them 4. Typically, they like to have 5. And so we were already looking at, Is Jared Ivey going to step up as an undrafted free agent out of Ole Miss and make the team and be able to play some of that spot? Can Mike Morris fill some of that role? Could another undrafted guy like a Connor O'Toole potentially, or some of the guys that have been on the practice squad in the past, a Jamie Sheriff, who they're kind of working on converting to trying him out at off-ball linebacker, but he has experience out there at edge, or a Tyreek Smith, who's now in his third year in the league, his second go-round with the Seahawks. Actually, his fourth year in the league. I think he's at the end of his rookie contract now. And that was with 4. But if Nwosu is going to be out for the entire preseason, and especially if they think he might not be able to make it back, or if they're concerned about him being able to get back to his former self and be completely healthy, then maybe you turn up the volume a little bit on going after a Trey Hendrickson, who, we talked about it last night, but negotiations with the Bengals have been described as contentious, that the guarantees, according to one teammate or a former player, the guarantees that the team is offering Hendrickson are, quote, atrociously low. And that while Hendrickson and the team seem to be in the same ballpark as far as total shape and numbers of the contract, it's the guarantees that are a big deal right now. We know how stubborn the Bengals can be, but man, if it comes to a head, I mean, they may not have a choice, especially with whatever's going on with Shamar Stewart over there. Like, they need edge players, right? This is a team that's built to win a Super Bowl on offense. They have to tend to this defense. And if it gets to a point where they think Hendrickson's not going to play and just continues to get older and farther into the last year of his deal, maybe they will make a move, and maybe the Seahawks are keeping an ear on that and are poised to jump in there. Let me put it this way. If they wanted to make a big move like that, the way I would describe it is this: they're in as good a position as anyone in the league to make it happen from a financial standpoint. The other thing is Jadeveon Clowney is still out there, and while signing him didn't make a whole lot of sense as a fifth guy, because I think the skill sets with Clowney and DeMarcus Lawrence are very similar. Kind of a run defender first who's, explosive pass rushing days are a little bit behind him, can still get to the quarterback and cause some issues there, but really good edge setter. Those skill sets are a little too similar. So I didn't think it worked then. But man, if Nwosu's going to be out, if they don't think he can make it back, like 3 guys isn't enough. Lawrence, Mafe, Hall, that's not enough. That's not going to get it done. I think Jadeveon Clowney could very well be in play, and they could easily fit him in on a 1-year deal with their current cap situation. And so keep an eye on that, certainly, as we move forward. Let me just go over my notes before I get to your comments and questions and see if there's anything that I missed. Nothing really to report on the running back rotation. It was as you would expect. Charbonnet was getting the run with the second team. He had a really nice one-handed catch today that was pretty cool. And then it went McIntosh, Helani, Damian Martinez after that. I will address this issue on the offensive line. It was kind of hard to tell because they were rotating pretty heavily exactly like who you would consider the ones or the twos, except when they first started 7-on-7, it was Oluwatimi at center and Haynes at right guard. That was the first combination that I saw. And then after practice, somebody asked Mike Macdonald about the offensive line and when they expect to get that dialed in. And the way the question was phrased was, do you plan to continue that that mixing and matching for much longer? And Macdonald's answer indicated that he'd like to settle on some things next week. That, competition's always ongoing, right? It's always subject to change, but he had said during minicamp he wanted to settle the starting unit on that offensive line sooner rather than later. It sounds like he kind of wants to lock that down next week and start to get those guys building some continuity. He was asked again specifically about Jalen Sundell and if he's still in the competition, and he did Sundell did play some guard today, played some right guard. And so he was asked, is that now a three-man competition with Bradford, Haynes, and Sundell? And he just said, look, he said Jalen Sundell is a guy that they really, really like. He can play lots of positions. Sorry, guys, dealing with an emergency. They do an off-season strength and conditioning competition and a lot of athletic testing and stuff, and he won. He won it. McDonald kind of lights up when he talks about Jalen Sundell. He also lit up today in talking about DeMarcus Lawrence. And I thought one of the most interesting quotes that he had after practice was he said in all of his time in football, he is DeMarcus Lawrence is the best drills player he's ever seen. Like, he attacks every single rep of every single drill as if his life depended on it, as if he was a rookie trying to make a roster, not a grizzled 32-year-old veteran that's accomplished some things, gone to Pro Bowls, had double-digit sacks. You can really see why they made it a priority to go out and get DeMarcus Lawrence and add him to this team. And certainly, thank goodness that they did, given the issues that we just described with Uchenna Nwosu. All right, you guys, let's go over and see what we got. Oh, a whole bunch of you here today. It's good to see you guys. Let me just show you a little video in the background while we're at this that I took of just some of the quarterbacks throwing, just for fun, right? A lot of questions about credentials, and again, if you're just joining me, like, I don't know, just going day to day, hoping to be able to go back tomorrow, hoping to be able to go the next day. We shall see. Looks like I've addressed a lot of this. Yeah, so this is funny. I think we just have to get used to this, right? Abe always... Let me go back to when he first came off the injured list last year. Was it the game at San Francisco? And I remember then thinking he's an upgrade over what we had at right tackle. He looks pretty good once the ball is snapped, but you could tell, like, running back to the huddle, running to the next play, I was like, this guy needs to get back in football shape. He's in football shape now. He just had the most healthy offseason he's had in 3 years, and he still runs that way, getting from one rep to the next. But then he'll do a blocking rep, and he looks quick, he looks strong, he looks fit. You know, there's no knee brace or anything else. I think we could really be in store for a bounce back year from Abe Lucas, in which case the Seahawks are going to have a really, really interesting decision to make next year as his contract is expiring. I don't think there's much of a chance that they would extend him now. I could be wrong, because they know the medicals better than anybody. And if they're convinced that it's not a chronic issue and it's behind him and it's fixed, then it might behoove them to extend him now before he has a really, really good year. If he has a healthy 17-game year and he holds down that right side and that offensive line improves by leaps and bounds, like, he's going to make some money this year. But I suspect they might be leaning more towards, let's see it first and then decide if we want to pay him moving forward. But a healthy Abe Lucas is a really, really good thing for sure. Dune asks, besides Spoon, who are the vocal players on the field, ones you can hear? Didn't hear a lot of that today, and maybe that was just where I was focusing my attention at the time. Again, it was a shorter practice. Maybe just day one, just trying to keep your feet underneath you and check the boxes and kind of get that one in the bank. Didn't hear a lot of chirping today. I suspect we'll see some of that next week when the pads come on, right? Pops is asking, when are you, Brandon Kane, Corbin Smith doing a live show? So I think we're talking about doing it Friday the 1st, so next Friday, the night before the Lumen Field practice. I have a meeting on Friday with some guys from a local brewery in Soto, talk about some sponsorship opportunities, and we're going to talk about potentially hosting on site there. Bryce Coots of Hawks Own Rundown is going to be involved in that, as well as Mookie Alexander. So stay tuned for that. Am I in my grandma's house? Nope. My grandparents are long, long gone. No, I just I'm gonna wait to set up my full podcast setup until I know how long I'm gonna be here. Like, if the answer is no and I don't get credentialed for the season, then I'll probably hang out here through the preseason. Might kick over. I've already gotten a phone call from my old employer who would like some help with some big events. So I might stick some money in my pocket doing that before I head back to join Christine. But we'll see. Just kind of taking it one day at a time. You'll know if I'm here for good when you see the green screen again. But until then, I'm just going to kind of make do with what I have. Might on a nice evening might do it outside as well. Hey, there's Dana. What's up, Dana? We got to get together again and chat. My old co-host at Field Goals. Always good to see her. Hopefully, Pops, you caught up with what I said earlier. I thought it was a solid day from Jalen. I thought it was as accurate as I had seen him. And just to repeat myself there, that the way I put it is, if you showed up today and you didn't know his background or his history, and that the rap on him is that he has struggled with some of the short stuff and intermediate stuff mechanically, that wouldn't be your impression of him. That you'd think, hey, who's this third string quarterback slinging the ball around? He's looking pretty good, and oh my goodness, he's quick getting over to the edge. So yeah. Brendan, Sundell at right guard tells me they like Olu at center, but also really like Sundell. I also think that they really value and are pushing hard for versatility this year. We've seen during OTAs and minicamp, Haynes was also cross-training at center a little bit. The more versatile guys are, the fewer offensive linemen you can keep. We talked about this on the show the other day. Last year they kept 11, but that's not typical, and that was more so because they had a bunch of young guys on the roster they wanted to protect, and they were afraid of exposing them to waivers. They just wanted to protect all of them. 10 is kind of typical for the Seahawks. 10 is what John Benton and Clint Kubiak kept in New Orleans last year. They have kept as few as 9 at times in the past, but then you're going to want to layer it pretty heavily on the practice squad if you can. When we did the show on Monday, the live show on with Bryce and Ryan and Michael Thompson on the Hawks Own Rundown, where we did a 53-man roster projection, we had 10. And what allowed us to do that and kind of save that roster spot over last year, which you need to do with the third quarterback and a fullback this year, is that versatility. If Sundell can play right guard and Haynes can play some center, that gives you the flexibility. If you think you can get a Lamea through to the practice squad or a Cable Do through to the practice squad, that you've got guys on game day if somebody goes down that you can mix and match with a little bit. So I'm not reading more. I'm not reading anything more into any of that stuff on day one, other than just kind of tinkering. They're going to do that at every position. They're going to do that on defense. They're going to do that at other spots as well. John, really hard to say. Really, really hard to say. Just can't tell until we see contact, till we see hitting. I will say this, though. And I'll post some of this over on Patreon, but maybe not until the morning. Because I'll tell you what, guys, I am fucking exhausted. I'm driving home from the VMAC, and it hit me, and I'm thinking, why am I so tired? Because I was out in the sun for a couple hours. I've been dealing with East Coast humidity for the last 3 months. And then I remembered I was up at 4 a.m. this morning, drove Christine to the airport, had a lot of stuff going on, had a bunch of errands to run before practice, had to unpack a lot of stuff. And then things that you think you kept track of and that you know where they are, they're not. So there was a little bit of scrambling around and some stress before going to practice today. But as soon as I wrap this thing up, Butch and I are getting, we're going to have a long, long night's sleep before we get up and do it all over again tomorrow. So, um, yeah, that's where that's at. But I will say this: the drills, some of the individual drills, it was really fun to watch John Benton teaching, and Justin Outen also was out there, the run game coordinator and assistant offensive line coach. They were working really hard in some individual bag drills and also some combo drills. So guard working with tackle and tackle working with tight end. They were really working on some of the minutia of the wide zone run concepts. Most notably, how to reach block and how to get outside uh, of a lineman's shoulder. And there was one moment where Justin Outen was talking about, like, hey, if this three technique curls inside, right, and just loops, and he goes, like, do you need to hit him? No. Do we need to go with him? No. The play's going this way, just let him go there. That's kind of one of the concepts of the wide zone. It's not hat on a hat, man on a man, go block that guy. It's create running lanes by in many cases, using the momentum of the defense to kind of just continue taking them the way that they want to go. It was really, really cool. But the point I wanted to make was this is without a doubt, in my opinion, the most athletic offensive line we've seen here in a long time. You can see it. And you can see in the guys that they targeted this year in the draft as well. But also last year with Lamea and Jarrell and Sundell, and then this year Cable Dew and Richmond, and obviously Gray Zabel, how quick they are out of their stance and how capable and able they are to make those reach blocks, to get out of their first step and cut a guy off and get outside, even if the 3 tech or the 5 tech or the 2 is headed that direction, and how to beat him kind of to that spot, right, and shield him. So as much as you're able to glean from those individual and duo drills, that stood out to me. It was just the quickness and the athleticism of those guys. There aren't any old school looking offensive linemen on this roster. Even Anthony Bradford, I agree with what Mike McDonald said, that he has kind of changed his body composition. He looks, he's a big dude, he's the biggest dude on that line, but it looked more put together, more proportioned, more evenly distributed. And it's a really, really athletic offensive line. That is cool to see. Warsawi says, saw Nwosu and Jamal Adams hanging out at the local urgent care. Good times. I wanted to touch on this last night, and I missed it. But pretty cool to see Jamal Adams sign in Vegas. And the closer we get to that first preseason game, the more interesting it's getting, right? Like, so many ex-Seahawks, and then obviously we're going to see that Pete Carroll flavor. If Adams is ready to play, and I don't know if you've seen the off-season videos of drill work, and some of the stuff Jamal Adams is doing. My goodness, he looked explosive, and he looked healthy. So, I'm rooting for those guys. Within hours of him signing with the Raiders, it was also reported, Jordan Schultz reported that Quandre Diggs was fully healthy, completely recovered from some of those injuries and that foot injury that he dealt with last year, that he's looking to sign with the team. Why not the Raiders? Why not get the band back together, right? And go Jamal and Quandre. So I'd love to see him stick somewhere. Also, we found out today, right about the time practice was wrapping up, I think, that Noah Fant is Jordan Schultz actually texted me and let me know this. Noah Fant is meeting with the Cincinnati Bengals. He was one of the teams I mentioned the other night as a potential landing spot for him, as they look to add another weapon there for Joe Burrow, as if he needs more. And then haven't heard anything yet about the Miami Dolphins, but that would make sense now, given that they traded Jonnu Smith and that Darren Waller is starting out there on the non-football injury list as well. So Noah Fant looks like he has some options out there. Let's see, John. Who looked the best playing linebacker and defensive end today? That's not where my eyes were for the most part today. Once we got into 7-on-7, 11-on-11, because the run stuff was mostly half speed and because there wasn't any contact allowed, I was primarily watching the quarterbacks at that point. But in drill work, I was watching the defensive linemen, especially the nose tackles, just kind of trying to get a feel for some of those young guys. And man, I like the length. I like the length that they have on that defensive line. I'll say this: I thought Mike Morris had a good first day. Mentioned him earlier, got in the backfield a couple of times, played well enough that there were a couple of questions about him. Corbin asked Mike McDonald what he wants to see out of him, and McDonald just said, just take a step forward. We want to see him be more consistent, and we like that he can play inside, reduce inside, also play that big edge. So I thought McDonald had a solid day. And then, not so much in the team portion, but just watching drills again. I will not be shocked if Byron Murphy has a huge second year. I just think he's ready to break out. And McDonald was asked, what's it going to take for Murphy to show us some more pass rush, get some more pass rush opportunities, and show us that part of his game. And McDonald just kind of answered in a general sense that he just said, we just need to get better as a pass rushing unit. I wasn't happy with where we were last year. When we do that, he'll thrive and he'll benefit from that as well. So I thought that was pretty cool. Kick up ass. Was Ernest Jones out there? Yeah. Ernest is out there. Again, only the guys I mentioned at the top are guys that didn't play. In fact, Torrey Horton's another guy that was out there and looked to be full go. McDonald indicated after practice that maybe they would do some load management with him, just really trying to make sure that they're taking care of that hamstring that he tore last year. But he was out there. Didn't really make any splash plays that I saw while I was watching, but it was just good to see him out there in 7-on-7, 11-on-11, because up until minicamp, all he was doing was individual drill work. But he looks good to go, and doesn't sound like there's any restrictions on him other than they're just going to kind of keep their finger on that pulse and hold him back if they feel like they need to. Yeah, John, I saw Emenwari playing exclusively in the box today. How he looked, again, he didn't make any splash plays. He didn't make any plays on the ball or get near the quarterback at all. But it was just, today was such a, how can I describe it? I was going to say nothing burger, but it's not ever nothing. It's just, there's almost nothing you can glean from a practice like this, except how do the quarterbacks look? How are guys moving around? Who's injured, who's not, and where are guys playing? So I couldn't tell you if he looked good or not, other than he was getting quite a bit of run there, rotating in a little bit with the ones, but mostly playing with the twos. Didn't look to me today like they were playing any sub packages, that they were just playing base. That's why we saw Devin Witherspoon outside quite a bit. And then Emenwari would come in and play in the box a little bit as well. So as we move forward, we'll keep an eye on that. I'm glad you asked about Cooper Kupp, because I meant to mention him. He was in my notes, and I didn't. First of all, he is already one of the most popular players on this team. In fact, today was season ticket holders only, and so the berm wasn't quite as packed as it is when they open it up to everybody, which I was kind of expecting, because I got another email as a season ticket holder just the other day reminding me that I could register for tickets today if I wanted to, and I thought that was interesting. They usually sell those out. But Coop was like, when he ran out the tunnel, Coop! Every time he touched the ball, Coop! He got more vocal support from the fans today than anyone who stepped on that field. The other thing is, he looks, and I wrote in my notes, Kupp fully healthy. Right after I wrote Walker explosive. Kupp looks 100%. And it's easy to forget, like, this guy won the Triple Crown 3 years ago. Right? Everybody was kicking themselves for not drafting him in fantasy. And I mentioned this the other night on the show, but, perception is such a powerful thing in all of sports really, but sometimes when a player changes teams late in his career, sometimes it can change a perception for the positive. I feel like we're kind of seeing that with Geno Smith, that people are taking him a little more seriously this offseason. You're seeing him in more like top 10 lists, right? And maybe the reaction there is, oh, hey, somebody wanted him badly. Maybe that means he's a little more valuable than we thought, right? Or maybe they just think he's going to a better situation offensively. But also late in someone's career, sometimes the assumption can be, well, the team didn't want him anymore. He's old, he's washed up, or they would have wanted to keep him. There was some of that skepticism, I think, when the Seahawks signed DeMarcus Lawrence, especially knowing that he came off an injury. And maybe that's the story of today, is how good both of those players looked. Cooper Kupp looks like Cooper Kupp. That's as good as I can say it. He shows absolutely no effects of the high ankle sprain that caused him to miss so much time last year. He is cutting incredibly decisively and sharply. He looks lean and fit and fast and catches everything. It reminds me of when Adam Thielen was released by the Vikings and signed with Carolina. There were a lot of people who thought he was washed, including the Vikings. And then he's had 2 really productive years with Carolina Panthers. Certainly is not washed up. At least hasn't been for the last 2 years. So I think there's a really, really good chance that we see a Cooper Kupp that is much closer to what we were used to seeing when he was healthy in LA than what some might have assumed he was going to be as, some broken down, washed up relic. Kupp looked good today, you guys. He did indeed. Any other wide receivers stand out other than the top 2? Yes and no. And what I mean by that is, yeah, there was a standout, but he's not a wide receiver. Elijah Arroyo was terrific today and looked every bit the part of a guy that could be a dynamic playmaker as a rookie and helped you to understand why they were willing to move on from Noah Fant at this point. And don't let me forget about Noah Fant, because I have something to say about that too. He was terrific. Didn't see him split out wide a whole lot today. He was playing from the tight end position. He had 2 catches that were kind of acrobatic. One where he was kind of behind him and he tipped it up in the air and he was falling to the ground and he was able to corral it. Another one where he was kind of sliding. He just catches everything. It's so natural when the ball hits his hands, it stops. He moves so easily that there were a number of times, and now I just have to keep telling myself, Arroyo's 18, Arroyo's 18, Arroyo's 18. Who was the last player to wear 18? Did Ben Obamanu wear 18? No, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, I kept thinking he was a receiver, and a couple of times I had to check my roster. I'm not afraid to admit when I'm stupid sometimes, you guys. It was like, oh, that's Arroyo. Arroyo. I need to get that right. Because he doesn't look like a tight end. Like, I'm trying to tamper down like how excited I am about what Elijah Arroyo could be. Now, on the Noah Fant thing, Michael Sean Dugar of The Athletic asked about Fant after practice, because they hadn't had a chance to talk to Mike McDonald or John Schneider or anybody else about it since the move was made. And Dugar asked, what about Noah Fant? Here, let me read this to you, because Dugar posted like the word for word on his Twitter, and I want to make sure I get this right. This was pretty interesting. Also, congratulations to Michael Sean, whose book, The Franchise, about the Legion of Boom era is coming out. He's going to be sending me an advanced copy. I'll get to dive into that and then have him on the show to talk about it. Here's what he said. Full exchange, word for word. Question. This is Michael Sean asking Mike McDonald. What happened with Noah Fant? McDonald. What happened with Noah? Michael Sean. Why release him now? McDonald. We released him a few days ago. Dugar. Why? Mike. I'm not going to tell you exactly why. There's multiple reasons. McDonald was irritated. I don't know if it was that he just didn't like the question, or if he didn't like the way Michael Sean asked it, because it was kind of blunt. It was kind of an abrupt tone that he asked it with, and McDonald seemed irritated. I think there's more to the Fant story, you guys. I was talking with Corbin Smith at length about this early in practice, just about how weird it was. I mentioned that at the time of the release. I know Corbin wrote about it. Not typical for the Seahawks. Usually with veterans, especially higher-priced veterans that they just feel like don't fit on the roster, they release them at the beginning of the offseason. They give them an opportunity to get out there into free agency when teams have roster spots and money. By hanging on to them, I'd been saying it all offseason and had to eat some crow this week that he's part of their plans. Like, if they were going to move on from him, they would have before the draft. It was a really deep tight end draft. And, oh, by the way, they drafted Elijah Arroyo. But even after the draft, they hung on to him when they could have released him then. And there were still a lot of jobs open and teams looking to add veterans after the draft. I can only assume that they tried to trade him. But, who's going to trade for a guy and take on $8.6 million when there are cheaper options out there, or when they can draft one? It was a good, deep tight end draft. I think there's something else going on there. We may find out at some point. Maybe Fant didn't like the situation, saw the writing on the wall, and asked for his release. In which case, that alone would explain, I think, why McDonald might have been irritated by the whole thing. Because I think we saw a little bit of that with Geno and DK, right? If guys don't want to be here, McDonald doesn't want them here. He's not going to try to beg you to stay and be a part of what we're doing. They want guys that are fully committed. He talked about that in regards to the participation and the attendance of the offseason and how important that is, and how he really places a priority on it. It'd be interesting, and at some point I'm sure in his career it's going to happen. Let's say McDonald was in Cincinnati right now having to deal with what's going on there with Stewart and Hendrickson. I'm not so sure McDonald wouldn't be in Mike Brown's office just going, get rid of these guys, trade them now. I want guys that want to be here. Like, he just seems to have very, very little patience for that. Maybe that's all that was going on there, but I thought that was a really, really interesting exchange. One other note about the tight ends along that same line. We saw Brady Russell play a lot of tight end today. It looked to me like Robbie Oots is essentially the fullback. It was really, really cool to see some I formation stuff and see two backs in the backfield, see a fullback line up. But Oots looks like the guy. And my goodness, he's one of the things I like about being so close to the action, being down on the practice field again, is you just get to see how guys look up close. And sometimes it's different than what you think. And it's pretty shocking how big Oots is for a fullback, but also how well he moves at that size. He seems like the guy there. And so that could have played into the decision and the comfort level they had in releasing Fant as well. Because even though Brady Russell, they've been playing him at fullback, they converted him this offseason, still played a lot of tight end today, and I think he's in their plans there. He could basically allow you to keep only 3 tight ends. He could give you that flexibility, be a guy that gets to the practice squad, maybe he gets elevated on game day. I really like the versatility there. And he's healthy, which is great, because I think he can do some things in the passing game. He's pretty shifty. He can move around a little bit, runs pretty decent routes, catches the ball well. So that was kind of cool to see. Hey, Shane Turner, we got some super thanks going on here. Good to see you, Shane. Sorry that I haven't gotten caught up with messages that you've sent on Facebook Messenger. I will catch up as soon as I can. Just getting settled here and running on fumes. Shane again says they better make you credentialed. No Noah Fant treatment for our favorite pod host all day, every day. You deserve it. Everyone email the Hawks. Don't do that. I would hate for them to think that I'm asking for that. No, I just look. I have the utmost respect for the Seahawks organization. I understand there's a certain way that they've done business regarding the media and credentials in their history. I don't expect them to change that or break the rules for me. I was given some pretty optimistic and positive indications early in the offseason when I first reached out to him, and that tone seems to have changed a little bit in the last few days. But I don't know if that's because they're reconsidering, or maybe they just want to close the door on independent creators and don't want to let any more in, or if they're just inundated with so many requests, because this is probably the busiest time of the year for the communications department outside of like playoffs, when everybody wants tickets and credentials and everything else. And so I'm just going to take it a day at a time and just be respectfully persistent and keep trying to go. Just keep showing up every day and hope they don't kick me out. What is Locke's value to the Titan? Interesting. Now, my shuttle driver on the way back from the VMAC to the parking garage today went off on a little tangent about how he thinks they're going to end up cutting or trading Locke and just keep two quarterbacks because Milroe is going to be good enough. I would much rather keep the three quarterbacks. I really would. I want them to have a plan and stick to the plan. I think signing Locke and signing him to a 2-year deal was part of the plan. I think they wanted to set themselves up for success and not have to face a situation where Milroe had to play before he was ready. And if you move on from Locke and Darnold gets a high ankle sprain, now Milroe has to play. And for a team that fancies himself as one that can make a playoff run, and they believe they're a team that can win this division, you're just not going to do that. You know, I think Schneider learned his lesson. The Trevon Boykin year where they had him as a rookie backup. I think Drew Lock's here to stay. Now, somebody offers, if Cam Ward goes down now, and I'm sure, you know, what Shane's talking about is the news that Will Levis is just now going to undergo shoulder surgery on his throwing arm after trying to rehab it all offseason. If Cam Ward gets hurt, the phone's probably going to ring. You know, you want to throw us a 2? Okay. Now we're talking. We'll probably figure something out. I don't think that's likely. I think they're committed to the plan. I think they're going to stick to it. But let's see. Jalen Milroe gets into some preseason games and looks more advanced than we expected him to. Maybe there's a chance. They love Drew Lock. They love him in that building. They wanted to re-sign him last year. They brought him back first opportunity they could this year. Gave him the second year because he had other opportunities. I would say the chances of Lock not being on this roster are 10%. James, thank you for the super thanks. Really appreciate that. Appreciate what you do, Dan. Stoked for the season. Go 12s. Just a reminder, you guys, I won't be doing it tonight because, again, my priority tonight is to sleep and get caught up on some rest and then get some more things set up around here tomorrow so it doesn't look like I'm at my grandma's house. My dead grandma, by the way. But the Substack, I'm really excited about writing again, you guys. There's a couple of pieces posted over there now. It's completely free, Seahawks Forever Substack, and I will keep it free through, you know what? I keep expanding it. Let's just say through the preseason, and just some additional analysis there. Some of it will be companion, will match up well with things that I do here, and then once the season starts, I'll charge a subscription fee, but it'll always be. I'm going to lock it. I'm going to be like Verizon, the lifetime locked-in minimum guarantee. I will only charge the minimum amount that Substack allows. I'm not so sure about this, Mike. He says if Locke hadn't caught COVID at the end of that preseason, he might have beaten out Geno for starter. I mean, look where we are today. And look at, Pete going to be aggressive and make the move to bring Geno in. I think Geno is going to be the guy. I know that was the thought at the time. I was even advocating for that. I was a Locke guy that preseason. If you remember, Geno had a very uninspiring preseason in the limited reps that he got, whereas, Locke threw some picks, but he had some really dynamic throws. I remember in particular he had a couple seam balls that were outstanding. But I think Pete was going to go with Geno no matter what. I really, really do. Stuart S. says, Dave Wyman said Locke claimed he had never had coaching on his footwork, but now he's getting it, and it's made a huge difference. He looks better. He got to work with Brian Daboll for a year. And Brian Daboll's as good as they come. I mean, he's a huge part of why Josh Allen is Josh Allen now. And, so he got to go get in the lab and work with Brian Daboll for a year. And I think that's showing. Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka. You know, that's a solid team. I think there's a reason that the Seahawks tried really hard to hire Kafka. Rampacy asks an interesting question. Is Trey Hendrickson, Micah Parsons a red herring while they look for someone no one thinks of potentially? Maybe. Not that I think they have some secret target out there, but things present themselves as the preseason goes along, right? Things reveal themselves. Players step up in other organizations and make make certain players unexpectedly available. They're always keeping their eye on what's going on other rosters around the league. They have members of their front office and scouting staff who that's their job. They basically have a board, just like they have for the draft, of NFL players that they think might become available. They have grades on those players. That way, if a player is unexpectedly cut, they don't have to scramble. It's not like the movie Draft Day where it's like, find out what you can. Find out everything you can about this player. They know. They already know. So there could be someone out there we're not thinking of that they have their eye on, depending on how camp goes, to either trade for or sign if he's released. But again, as we sit here today, I think option number one, if they felt like they needed to go out and get someone and get him in here quick because they're concerned about Nwosu being out, I think it's Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know from a John Schneider perspective if there were any bridges burnt when Clowney wasn't re-signed. But certainly Mike McDonald had great success with him a couple years ago in Baltimore, and their relationship is solid. So to me, I think that's the one to keep the eye on. Here's what I'll say, Max, and we talked about this on Bryce and Ryan's show on Monday. Micah Parsons is the type of player that you absolutely go the distance for if he's truly available and if you can get him. I don't think we're there yet, but it's worth keeping an eye on because Jerry Jones just can't get out of his own way. And I don't know. That situation's interesting. It bears watching. I think if the Cowboys get off to a poor start and that situation doesn't get fixed, if he doesn't get extended, certainly, and it doesn't sound like that's close to happening, I think he could be one of the biggest storylines at the trade deadline this year. I do indeed. All right, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up because, as I said, I am toast. But I'm excited about tomorrow. I'll let you know as soon as I know. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever, of course, if I'm going to be credentialed or not and get to go. If not, I'll do what I can, and I'll just keep trying, and I'm going to stick around the area no matter what for a while, at least through the preseason. We got some cool things coming up, potential live show next Friday. Just follow the Twitter for all of that news. Also subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss out on anything. Check out the Substack and the Patreon. There's chat within both of those options as well. Here, let me get some music going here because that's my thing, right? Let's play some of that in the background. Really appreciate you guys. Again, stay tuned. I'll let you know what happens tomorrow and moving forward, no matter what. Whether I'm at practice or not, we'll have impressions. And you know what? If I don't get to be there, I'll find someone who was there, and we'll jump in on them as well. Got to talk to Rob Rang today, meet him in person for the first time. That was fantastic. He was very complimentary about the show. That's awfully nice. Got to meet Greg Bell in person today. Got to chat it up with Corbin Smith, and I'll leave you with this. This was kind of interesting. So I walk in. It's my first time there as a working member of the media. I've been in the building before in other capacities. And so we're waiting in the media room until they tell you that it's okay to go out there. and it's pretty packed, right? There are a lot more people that are credentialed during training camp than there are during the regular season. And what I didn't realize is that all the regular guys that are fully credentialed have their own little spaces. They have all these little spots around. There are probably about 20 spots where they all have wired internet and everything else. They have little storage cubbies. And there were a couple of chairs that were empty, and there were no name tags or anything else, so I sat down. And then Brian Nemhauser came over and he goes, "Hey, Dan, good to see you." He goes, "Hey, I just want to let you know, you're sitting in Brady Henderson's chair, or in Brady Henderson's spot." And I was like, "Oh, man, thanks for letting me know." So I get up and I move and I find a little spot to stand over by the potato chips. And like 2 minutes later, Brady Henderson walks in. So, whew, dodged a bullet. Brian texted me on my way home, and he was like, "Hey, sorry I didn't get a chance to catch up with you and see how you're doing." I said, "Hey, thanks for the heads up. You know, Brady Henderson's royalty, and kind of a legend, and I'm glad I dodged that bullet." And he said, "Well, I did that last year. I sat in someone's spot, and so I just wanted to pay it forward." So there's that. Tomorrow, and I've teased this before in the past, I'll tell you my training camp story. It's embarrassing, but it's kind of funny, of the last time I officially got to cover a Seahawks training camp. Dave Craig was the quarterback, and, well, I'll just put it this way. I almost threw up on his shoes. That story tomorrow on Seahawks Forever. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Forever and always go Hawks.